Leader has got to show command and control over his or her own emotions so that the people working under the leader can see certain stability.
Welcome to the Resilience in Leadership podcast. I am Coach Anda Goseco.
And I am Ian Santos.
In each episode, we share our story and interview world-class Filipino leaders who are among the best in the world and who deserve a spotlight for all their courage and perseverance to greatness.
Our goal is to recognize outstanding Filipino leaders who exemplify leadership traits worth emulating.
Start a movement to enhance and elevate leadership capabilities in the country.
Create a community that helps each other become better leaders.
And inspire other leaders to elevate their game through integrity, malasakit, courage, inspiration, and resilience.
As we strive to become that great one, we have to fuel our spirit with these inspiring, resilient, and courageous Filipino leaders that we have today.
So if you are someone who leads a great workplace and engages employees,
loves to achieve great results, or simply someone who aims to succeed as a leader,
this podcast is for you. Now let's get to the show.
Hello, everyone. We are so fortunate tonight as we have someone I truly admire, not just as a leader, but also as a speaker. He is the country's premier inspirational and motivational speaker and the president of Success Options, Inc. He is also the author of so many best-selling books.
Francis Kong, a keynote speaker and leader, emphasizes that integrity is about keeping promises and delivering commitments. As a leader himself, Francis does not only train and teach about leadership, nor does he write about it in his columns and many bestsellers on the subject. He preaches what he practices, whether with his team at Success Options Incorporated or in the many behind-the-scenes selfless services he provides to the community.
Everyone, let's all welcome Francis Kong.
Hi, Francis. It's good to have you here with us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for spending time with us from your very super busy schedule.
People always say that, but actually, I'm not really that occupied all the time. And I think one great philosophy I've learned in life is time is not found, time is made. So you don't find time, you got to make time, diba? And of course, it's really important for me to be with you. Yeah.
Oh, likewise.
Thank you again. Thank you, likewise.
You're welcome.
So we are just very curious, Francis, because the theme of our podcast is resilience in leadership. And we know as a leader also that you have gone through a lot of difficult challenges. So we're wondering, how do you handle difficult challenges? And what have you used that has helped you overcome it?
Challenges will always be there, whether you are holding responsible positions of leadership or not. It's just that when you are in a position of responsibility, your challenges seem to be bigger because there's just a lot more things you got to be taking care of. So I like the theme, leadership resilience, because every single effective leader has to be resilient in a lot of things. They're not resilient in all things, but they are very resilient in some very essential things. So let me give you an example. So I've been, I have a sneaky suspicion why you, together with Ian, has preferred to invite me to be your guest tonight. And the theme happens to be resilience, because there's a lot of things you can pick up from a senior citizen like me, who has gone through a lot of major challenges in life. And there will always be two things that we have to consider, which I have considered every time I find myself in the right smack in the middle of something that's very challenging. Number one, is this something within my control, or is this something outside my control? So The mind has to operate fast and to get into the reality of assessing the situation. Secondly, a possible question is this the result of some stupid or wrong things I have done, wherein I'm now reaping the rewards for my careless decision, or in certain cases, wrong decision? And if it is, then our responses to both situation of thinking will require different skill set and different mindset. So
Mm.
if it's something beyond my control, what can I do? I don't solve it. I will just manage it. So this situation, like for example, COVID-19. I mean, I can stop COVID-19, but it's something outside my control. I learned to manage the situation wherein I'm in. And of course, if you go deeper into the philosophical and theological level, you understand that God's in control, whatever difficult the situation is. Heaven's throne is still occupied, as He has proven time and time again. And the second thing is, if it is something that is a result of a wrongdoing, mistake, or some stupid things that I've done in the past and now I'm paying for it, so I gotta look back at this thing and then realize that it offers lessons for me to become a better person. I
Mm.
might as well accept it, own it, face it, deal with the consequences, and then move on, becoming a better and a wiser person as a result of that. So
Mm.
basically, that's the two foundation of thinking that I have every time I find myself in a very challenging situation.
I like the two things that you said, and especially the part where you're also taking accountability for your actions, but you're also looking at your situation in a different perspective. It's about lessons that you can learn from the situation that can help you become a better person. Because I think sometimes people just get stuck with what's wrong in the situation rather than thinking about what's also right about it, how can this help me. And I also really liked also the part where you said focus on the things that you can and cannot control. And I truly believe that also, because I think if we insist on focusing on things that we can't control, then that's when we get overwhelmed. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Francis, I want to dispel what you mentioned earlier. We didn't invite you because you're a senior citizen. Actually, we invited you because you're known as the country's leadership expert, right? So,
You're
my,
very kind.
my question is something that's relevant and being talked about in many social media outlets today. And it's about the great resignation and the quiet quitting, right? As a leader, and
Mhm,
what would be your advice to leaders who are experiencing these phenomena? I would say
mhm.
it's nothing new, but people just gave it a new name, right? But I would be very interested to hear your thoughts on both the great resignation and quiet quitting.
The great G.K. Chesterton, the philosopher of the olden times, said this: there is nothing new that's happening today. Everything has happened before. Only old things happening to new people. That's why you have new labels, you have new terms, but it's essentially the same old thing. But let me address the first question first, Ian. You know, when the subprime mortgage debacle happened in the US, I knew it eventually is going to come here and then affect us with with the great economic depression that happened in 2007 to 2009. And so immediately I asked, well, one of my clients from Microsoft, and I said, so when is it going to hit us? And I'll never forget what I was told at that time. Our friends from this company said, normally, Francis, our projection is that anything that's major that happens in the US will take us about 1.5 quarters to suddenly begin moving along the same direction as well. So what happens right now is that whatever literature that we read, whatever things that we are hearing, if it happens from the West, it may not be happening now, but eventually we might catch up. So let me point out the fact that while we talk about the great resignation, the great quitting, and it's actually happening here, although not in a similar huge scale, in my interaction with my clients, what's happening right now cannot be attributed to them quitting, but it can also be attributed to the great poaching. So you have Western companies poaching on Filipino talents, offering them, a higher pay comparatively speaking, and you add to this the fact that sometimes we are very impressionable. We always tend to copy. So, for example, you have, I'll just give you one illustration. For example, Anda quit her job. And then she's now taking up because she has been poached by some countries, some company from other countries to do gigs. And she has the liberty to do what? One or two gigs, right? And the time zone affords her to do so. So Coach Anda will now be seen banging on her laptop against the backdrop of a calm, beautiful beachside, taking selfie together. And so when she posts that on her social media page, and then the other guys will be saying, "Ay, gusto ko yan. I also want that." And so they have a tendency to copy that. Now, let me give you the reality of things. The reality of things is that the great resignation in the West is now giving way to the great regret in the same Western Hemisphere. And that great regret has translated to about 65% of the people who quit their jobs expressing regret because the grass is not greener on the other side. And mind you, the employers too. The employers are likewise regretting the fact, why did we hire those guys in the first place? So it is an impulse reaction to the situation. And guess what? Great resignation has led to the great regret, has now led to the great renegotiation, and is going now to the last stage, which is the great reshuffle. That is particularly what's happening. Now, I'm going to bring you back. But what about the people who have quit their jobs here and started because they were poached and doing stuff? It's kind of scary. And, as practitioners in the field, normally when I say things like this to people who are not practitioners, they wouldn't be able to understand, but you guys understand this. What's going to happen is you're going to leave a gap in your resume. Two, you don't have protection. There's no dole that can take over your rights or anything else. Number three, you got to make sure that you are on your own because there's no HR and LD that will help develop you and train you for your skills now. So that gap might translate to irrelevance and obsolescence pretty soon. And when you decide to go back to full employment, that's going to be some marks against you. Not only that. So I'm just wondering, with the Great Recession, which of course the Western Hemisphere refuses to accept, but it's actually technically happening now in its third quarter, what's going to happen is you have all these big companies now announcing that they are freezing hiring. Freezing hiring also means retrenching. So would it be a remote possibility that those who are last in will be first out? So those are possible now. And so it's not that picturesque. It's not that ideal, especially when you do impulse reaction to things like this. So that's part one of it. You guys have thoughts on that? You like to your inputs before I address the second one about quiet quitting?
No. I think what you said is actually quite relevant now, and I have friends and I know companies who are actually now stop freezing hiring for the balance year
Mhm.
because things are starting to change. Yes, probably the economy is doing well, but on the other hand, costs are going up. There's more pressure to squeeze more profitability for companies. So I
Right.
agree. That's something that's happening now and going to the horizon.
Mhm.
hmm The companies that I'm associated with, we have let go of a lot of people actually. And mind you, letting go of people is a very sad thing to do, especially during the lockdown, because we're in retail. 400 brick and mortar stores all closed, not only in the Philippines, but also in Southeast Asia. So, what do you expect? We have to let go of people. But letting go of people is a very hard pill to swallow, especially for employers and people like us who are in leadership positions. But it's got to be done. That's not the real point. The pain point there is now that the economy has opened, Our challenge now is not sales. Our challenge now is inventory. Our sales are tremendous. We're just a few points below our sales in 2019. And 2019 was our banner year. All right.
Wow.
And so here's the pain point. The pain point now is this: when people were retrenched and we closed a couple of non performing stores, we held on to the ones that are performing, our productivity actually rose up.
Mm,
Now, that's something that we have to consider.
mm,
I
mhm,
have always maintained this position. Your head count is a measurement of your operational efficiency. And just because you have a lot of people in your company doesn't mean that you have higher efficiency. Sometimes, on the contrary, it is the impediment towards progress. So, with that being said, what's going to happen now for those who have left and then those who are into side gigs, and then when they lose their gigs, uh, and for those who are planning to do so, if I were in their position, I would really, really think hard, monitor the situation before I make some drastic decisions as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm
Fully.
hearing. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Anna.
Now I was going to say I'm also really hearing what you're saying. So thinking about the situation first yourself before making an impulsive move is important. I like the point also that you said about operational efficiency, and I noticed that also in coaching organizations that there's a lot of times when people are wanting to keep people who are non-performers. So I think it was a good time, good way also to reevaluate and see who are the ones who are truly engaged, who really want to help the company, and are committed to helping move the company forward.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
If I may add a bit to what you said, Francis, no, cost is going up, and agree, no, supply chain issues are everywhere. In my company as well. It's because of the disruptions being brought about by several things, right? The Ukraine war still has an impact, etc. We have a sugar shortage right now. A beverage company service level is down to 40%. I was just speaking to a general manager of a supermarket chain. So things like this squeeze the company and force them to really rethink their organization, the number of
Mhm.
people they have, and the quality of the people they have. As you said earlier, it's not the number of people, but the quality of the people. So, which brings me to my
Exactly.
second question. I think it's a good segue about quiet quitting, right? It's talking about people who are just, doing what's expected of them and not really beyond that. What are your thoughts on that? I would be very interested to hear your thoughts.
Well, let me give you a broad macro perspective of the different fields of industry, not just confined to business, but also into arts and profession. And I've met many, the reason why I love my job is that it enables me to interact with the people who have arrived, people who are there, up there. And one thing I've noticed is it's very, very strange. One common denominator I find in the people who are really, really up there, from the tycoons to the taipans to the typhoons as well. I mean, these are people who claim to be, but they're full of wind, all right? So the real tycoons and taipans, many of them are really very humble people. And they're very liberal in their sharing, not to everyone, but probably to people they can trust. Now, here's my challenge: name me a successful leader, a successful business person, a successful professional, a successful artist who were advocates of quiet quitting. You'll never find anyone. No such thing. And so, as G.K. Chesterton said, G.K. Chesterton, by the way, is just echoing what Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes would say: there's nothing new under the sun. You equate that with some new explanation because, they would just give whatever that is acceptable. And then after it, because work life balance is very important to them. Hmm, sounds nice, especially when they're echoed by self-proclaimed gurus in LinkedIn, which makes it appealable so that the young people now would say, "Oo nga, ako rin." Wait, wait, wait. Let's dig deeper into things like this. First of all, let us describe balance. Anda and Ian, I've never accepted invitations for me to talk on work life balance unless they change their title or their theme and expectations, because I've never believed in balance. And let me tell you, over the years, maybe about 5 years even before the pandemic happened, companies start changing their terms. No, I couldn't think of any company that would still embrace the term work-life balance anymore. What do you have? Work-life harmony, work-life uh, work-life integration, isn't it? Yan na nauso eh. So let me explain to you why. If you go deep down into the technical definition of balance, what does balance mean? Balance means equilibrium. I'm standing, I'm not sitting. I have one left leg and my right leg balanced, standing like this with my distribution of weight equal. So if I'm holding a scale, that's 50% and 50%. Now that's what balance is. Now, you equate that to life and work. What's 50% life? That ain't life. Maybe you're surviving, 50-50. What is work? 50%. That ain't work. Because you will never master your craft. You'll never arrive at the position wherein you become an expert in something. And so, the other side, 50-50, it doesn't work. But the balance we need to should be seen on the verge and the perspective of one riding a bicycle. If you're riding a bike, you keep on pedaling. Now, that doesn't mean you exert all effort and keep on pedaling because you're going to go tired and you're going to burn out. And there are times when you cruise, there are times wherein you relax and enjoy the scenery, but you still need to pedal on. Because once you stop, you lose your balance. That's the balance that life really cares about. Why? You think you love your kids and you love your family and you can stop through there? No. You continue your work because you continue pedaling. My wife and I were going to be celebrating our 43rd wedding anniversary this month. You
Wow,
think that I've
congratulations.
stopped? Yeah. And thank you. And one thing I've learned in life is this: I don't expect my marriage to work. That's why I work on my marriage every day. I keep on pedaling. What are you thinking about? The moment you stop, you lose balance. That's why I am never for that quiet quitting thing. And if you do just what is the bare minimum, you know what? Kung baga sa test, you are pasang awa eh. You're 75%. And 75% means you're average. As Seth Godin, whom I have the privilege of interviewing himself, would say, if you're average, you're invisible. Because the whole world is full of an ocean full of people who are merely average. But if you want to excel, you gotta stand out. And that's exactly the thing that worry me. Pag nauuso yan, kokopyahin na naman without deeper understanding. And maybe let me just end this portion by just simply saying this. If if you want to earn money, you have to be good. If you want to earn more money, you have to be above average. But if you want to be excellent, you have to even excel beyond above average. But if you want to earn a fortune, you got to make sure that you're the only one who can do what you can do because you've reached that a level of expertise which is very, very hard to duplicate. Maybe they just copy and imitate you, but they can't duplicate it and they can't go beyond you. And that's a marketing principle in life as well as in business too. That's just my take on it, of course.
Love that analogy, Francis, especially the uh, riding a bike, balancing, but having to still pedal and work along the way. And then your last point
Mhm.
is really, if you want to stand out in the world, if you want to be good at your craft, and if you want to earn money, more money for yourself and your family and your loved ones, then quiet quitting is not the way. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I want to
Anthony,
You're
add.
right.
go
Yeah, I
ahead.
want to add also what I liked about it. That I think it's important to be to live with purpose and to be very intentional, right? And so to just keep on pedaling, and if you take those steps, it's helping you move forward. But then if you stop, then it's
Mhm.
you're not moving forward at all. So I love that bicycle analogy as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I was wondering also, Francis, how do you think leaders can continue to lead resilient teams in an uncertain future? Because there's a lot of uncertainties that are happening also, and I hear a lot from teams also not being sure of where the future is going to go. So how do you just keep them resilient as a leader?
We'll face the fact that even the famous futurist who was propelled to another level of popularity, uh, not Amy Cuddy, but Amy Webb. Sorry, I've got two Amy mixed. Amy Webb, the famous futurist who became more popular during the pandemic, says long-term plan means the next 12 months. That's why there are semantics that we need to address. I've been addressing a lot of decision makers into saying, sa mga business planning nyo, wag mo naman didiman nyo. I want to have I want to have an accurate projection. A projection nga, how can that be accurate? And so, as we are going through the uncertainty, yeah, everybody's talking about the new normal. Let me tell you what the new normal is. Chronic instability is the new normal. So get used to that, man. I mean, 3 months ago, anybody thought that we're going to have a sugar shortage and then it's going to be a salt shortage and then it's going to be an onion shortage? Ang pinag-aawayan ngayon, puti o kulay pula na onion. If you have onion, be good with it, all right? And so, what's happening right now is you don't even know kung ano ang mga shortage na darating. I mean, you even have shortage of queso de bola. That's why you don't have ensimada in my favorite place of eatery. So, these are chronic instability that we have to deal with now. I don't like this term, but I think it's easily understood. Monkey see, monkey do. That doesn't mean people are monkey and the bosses are monkey, especially now with monkeypox now being alarming, being alarmist na naman, nag-i-spread nito all over the place.
Mhm.
Alam mo, minsan, minsan, something that is very small lang, they can blow it out of proportion and instill fear in the minds of people. Eh. So what I'm saying right now is this. The leader has got to show command and control over his or her own emotions so that the people working under the leader can see certain stability. And in my Level Up Leadership Masterclass, I called it, Anda and Ian, sa bilis ng pagbabago. In June of 2020, I launched Level Up Leadership, Masterclass Web. Aba, 3 months later, I had to change that into Level Up Leadership 1.0. And then now, it's Level Up Leadership 2.0. Sa bilis ng pagbabago, I always want to update and upgrade the participants with what's happening, no? And so, ang lagi kong sinasabi, good leadership means the leaders are merchants of hope. Pag nawala yung hope na yan, na doon nakaangkla yung mga tao natin, you're not helping deal with the problem. You're exacerbating the problem. Therefore, the leader himself or herself should show mastery over moods and emotions and to be able to sell the idea of hope. Now, you might probably be asking, there are certain things that leaders don't have the right answers to. Yeah, so this is what I teach. And itong sinasabi ko, Sir, Mom, what should we do? Ang gulo niyan. And so, the leader would have said, guys, I don't have the answer to that because you got to be honest. Do not pretend to have any answers if you don't have it. And then I will always say, look, the owners of the business, the top guys out there, they're not dumb people. They're very smart. They're planning things. You and I may not be privy to what is happening or what we should do. However, here's what you and I can do. We should trust the process. We should just trust the process. And then I'm always here in my capacity to be able to help. Ask me, let me know you need help. And by the way, a resilient leader now is also selling the tagline that says, today, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. Asking for help now is a sign of courage, transparency, and honesty. So that should be the case. And when the people see this is the kind of leader we are serving, it begins to move now and spread the resilience thing within the team as well.
So when I'm seeing Francis, and what I like with what you're saying is that it's also the leader remembering that he is the anchor, and right, that can lead
Hmm.
to the whole
Exactly.
team also feeling that hope. And I think it's
Hmm.
important for the leader to be aware of how he's showing up every day at work and what are people seeing
Hmm.
from him or from her. Yeah, it's a very good
Correct.
reminder, and I like what you said about change. That it's chronic, it's there, it's complex. That's the world we live in today, and we've always been experiencing change. So I like that you just have to trust the process. It's happening. Face reality. I think these are great reminders for leaders and for the teams as well.
So for my end, Francis, I know you've been a leader of several organizations before you became the Francis Kong of the speaking industry. How can you share with us some tips on how I'm pretty sure you went through a lot of tough times as well, and you probably have your own personal ways of dealing with the stress, anxiety, pressure, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers would be very interested. How does Francis Kong, as a leader, manage all of those things in order to continue to thrive and survive?
Well, that's a great question, Ian. And Coach Anda and Ian, I will give you a trade secret that not many speakers will share. Here's the trade secret. Every time the speaker says, "That's a great question," that means the speaker doesn't have any answer yet. All right. So I'm gonna give you an answer. One of the most painful experiences that one will have as a leader is when the trust is betrayed. I have put all of my faith and trust, and I've trained certain people, and then they not only betrayed my trust, but they ran away with business and accounts as well. So that's very painful. Secondly, one of the most difficult thing is when you are the one responsible for starting something, and that thing is taken away from you unrighteously and undeservingly. And that's what happens when I started my garments business. It was taken away from me.
Mm.
However, going back to the premise that these are things not within my control, but as long as I know I'm in the right, therefore, the biblical operation would begin to operate. For God works out, all things work out to the good for those who love God and those who are called according to his service. Had that incident not happened to me in garments, I would not be doing what I'm doing right now. And so, one great lesson I have learned from that, looking backwards, hindsight is always 2020 vision. History is a good teacher. When I look back now, I just realize that just when things seem to be falling apart, it might precisely be the very time when God is putting the pieces in its rightful place.
Mm.
So today, I take a look at that and I say, oh, hindi naman nagpapasalamat ako, niloko nila ako. But I'm saying that I'm so happy that what happened did not make me expend energy in hitting back or extracting revenge, but to make me see the reality of the new situation I am now in and then make the most of it. And that happened many, many times. Perhaps the most recent one happened a couple of years ago when some reporter twisted what I said when I was invited to give a press conference in the palace, and they twisted what I said and then put a false headline,
Oh no.
which brought about massive bashing from a lot of people without stop.
Mm.
So again, now that I'm older and a little bit toughened by all the challenges, I now figure, teka muna, I didn't do anything wrong, so this must be for something good that's gonna happen. That calmness and that situation wherein there are things you can do and you got to do your best. There are things you cannot do, so you just manage what it is. Your best has afforded me to weather all these crises such that COVID-19 happened. I said, what's different with COVID-19 compared to Asian financial crisis in 1997? As a
Mm.
matter of fact, today when I look back, that time was a lot more difficult than this one. Because during those days, wala kang handle eh. There's no such thing as mental health. There's no such thing as empathy. Wala nun eh. Pero ngayon, maraming mga support eh. So now, I would say that that calmness of mind, that disposition of hope can bring me now to see the possibilities and the opportunities opening up. And that affords me, as long as I navigate the current situation correctly, I will emerge ahead of the curve. And I'll enjoy the possibilities that are opening up.
Ang galing, no? There are three things that came to, if I were to summarize what I just heard, I'm sure it's more than three things, but three things stood out from what you just said, no, Francis. One is uh, always trying to find what's good about a bad situation and trying to seek the opportunity that it presents or the situation presents. That's one thing. Another thing is having faith as a leader on a higher being will help us, maintain our calmness and perspective in things in life, because not everything, and the third thing is not everything is within our control. So we just try to manage and focus on what we can control, because at the end of the day, we will just go crazy probably if we try to fix all the problems, even those problems that we know that we cannot fix anyhow. So that for me, those are
Yeah.
the three key points that I got from what you just said.
And I may not have said this, but there's one more that we got to add into that. Every success and every failure is always a test on our character. It's always a test. Can you pass the test with flying colors? And the sad thing is, a lot of people can handle adversity. They don't know how to handle fame and success. So,
Mm.
yeah, both success and failure needs skill set. Eh. They need the mindset and skills and everything to handle it correctly. So, yan ang advantage ng speaker nyo at guest nyo na may hawak na senior citizen, less 20% discount. Yeah.
I will make sure to get your advice, Francis, once I become rich and famous. So Anda, time flies very fast when you're having fun, as I always say. Anda, maybe you have one more question left for Francis.
Well, before my last question, I wanted to say I love how you see things in a different perspective, and maybe that's something, like if you see things in another angle, then it changes the outcome, it changes the results, and sometimes if it's your choices, the choices that you make every day, and I'm hearing from everything we've been talking about from the beginning, it's how your perspective of the things, and that's what matters the most. So I was just curious, more about on building habits. So the leaders or the listeners who are listening to this program, I'm sure they realized so many things. But now I guess the question is, now that I realize all of these things, how do I now put this into action? So I wanted to ask you the hardest part, like how do you put that into action? How do you make it happen? How do you make sure that you're consistent in it and that you're able to make these positive changes? Any tips for
Sure.
people out there?
Well, there are two enemies that we have to fight against: forgetfulness and distraction. Many, many, many years ago, I asked my mentor, who happens to be the internationally renowned motivational speaker, when motivational speakers were really educated and intellectuals. His name is Dr. Dennis Waitley. And Dr. Dennis Waitley says, Francis, I've been reading a lot of literature saying that it takes 21 days in order to build a habit. That's crazy. I'm a trained psychologist, and I train NASA, I train U.S. Olympics team, and I've trained companies. What takes you a lifetime to build, you can't undo in 21 days.
Hmm.
And so from that thing alone, I know there's no magic formula. There's no days assigned to creating a new habit. Although one thing he did said made sense. You don't eradicate a bad habit. You can only replace a bad habit with a new one, because nature abhors a vacuum. Therefore, in my many years of experience, this is what I've done. First of all, technology has afforded us with the greatest invention, such that people now can go to, probably pretty soon they can go to Mars. But the two major big invention people still neglect using is a piece of paper and a pen. You got to write things down. What are the goals you want to achieve, and what are the skill set and the habits you need to do in order to make you achieve those goals? You got to write it down. And then, secondly, like right now, I still use the traditional printout of some exercise regimen that I'm following now, without which, sayang eh, sayang yung energy. And so, this is what we should realize. Never underestimate the power of routine. Routine is the very platform that maintains discipline in what we need to do. So, identify mo na, pagkatapos, mag-create ka na ng routine, but then, routine now is very hard to maintain. Therefore, what I do is I do routine in terms of association. Let me explain. The whole household knows that I'm awake. Why? Once I'm awake, I accompany and associate my being awake with opening my Audible book. So I'm listening to something even while I'm brushing my teeth. Walang
Mhm.
nauubos na oras eh. Walang sayang eh. So that's association.
Mhm.
Going to the bathroom, waking up, and listening to an audiobook. And then afterwards, I entered my room and I turned off the audiobook and start doing some body rituals and stretching and everything else. And then after that, since we are major liquid material base, I might as well jumpstart the day by drinking water that is associated with taking my 16 vitamin pills every day, right? So kasama na yan. And then afterwards, I open up the laptop and do my quiet time. Everything else dito walang association. It's just solely concentration and meditation on God's word. And then when that is done, pop, get out, brew my coffee. I associate the aroma of coffee with preparation for the floor exercises, which I'm gonna do. And then that coffee and the floor exercise is associated with listening to my friend Mimi Ong of ANC Market Watch and listening to, I don't have to watch her. She's the same face all throughout. I just want to listen to what's happening and then afterwards maybe turn to Bloomberg and figure out what's happening in the world economy and business. Everything is by association. Now, I don't know how creatively you can do yours, but when you stick to it, guess what happens? It becomes autopilot. It becomes unconscious competence. So that's the way to build habits that can help bring us from where we are to where we want to be. I hope that it works for me. Certainly, I hope it works for you.
That was really good. Now, I like the part about challenging the 21-day habit that you're change after 21 days, but it really is a part of you. But I like the association the most. So as you were talking, I
Mm.
started thinking about what new things can I start trying tonight or tomorrow that can help me become better and then trigger something. So I noticed like it's all connected and it's all triggers that triggers one
Yes.
after the other. Very, very interesting. Yeah, I like that.
I
Yeah.
was actually counting how many vitamins I was drinking. I'm not too far from your 16, Francis. But seriously, what I got from what you just
Yeah.
said, having a stickiness of certain habits and being intentional with your day is going to bear fruit. So that was my
Mhm.
key takeaway there, Francis. Um,
Mhm.
so
That's good.
so we've come to the end of this session. It was truly fun and enlightening, Francis. Thank you for being with us. I wish we could
You're welcome.
do a longer chat next time, but maybe we want to invite no Anda and Francis, our viewers, no, about regarding our upcoming conference, which by the time they're gonna see this, but they're gonna be able to watch this anyway, Francis and Anda, no. By the time they watch this, it's gonna be done already because it's happening this
Mm.
Saturday, September 3. But it's worth watching. I'm pretty sure we have four very good speakers, and it's going to be moderated by none other than Francis. We're planning a quarterly leadership lessons from the top 30 leaders on LinkedIn in the future. So we want to invite the listeners and our viewers to watch out for it. So anything you want to invite them on, Francis or Anda, this is the floor for you guys to share what you have planned in the future, like speaking engagements or training or conferences.
Oh, perhaps on my part, I'd like to invite people who are interested The last time we had about 100 plus participants, and we had to close the gates because we have to prepare for seminar kits, and we can't ship them out soon enough for late registrants. But I'm going to be running my Level Up Leadership 2.0 Masterclass this September, I think 27, 28, and 29. Wherein it's going to be 3 days, 3 hours each day. And it's going to be attended by a lot of representations from different industries. Wherein I'm going to be talking about the critical leadership skills that's necessary to bring us from where we are to the immediate future that we're going to be facing. I will be presenting the latest consumer behaviors that's happening now, and that can make a major dent. I'm going to talk about different generational mindsets and how to deal with them. So it's a full pack thing, and I guess a very important portion for that is to talk about effective leadership communications and how to affect that in in order to make us become more effective leaders. So it's going to be a lot of things zeroing in on leadership. And the funny thing is that there's always a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners attending this one, and they usually bring their next generation, which is their children. Sometimes they drag their wives along with them because the wives are the ones paying for it, and then it becomes a very fun interaction, and it's very highly interactive. By the way, I don't do games. We don't have time for that, but we do break them out in different groups, and then we have case studies, and then we interact, and those interactions are not too long because there's just so much stuff that even 3 days are not enough for me to share. So I'd like if people are interested in that, I'd like to invite them, and they can go to my Facebook page because I'm going to have my post my announcements posted there.
Great. And Anda, anything from your end?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that's a very exciting program and a 3-day intensive. Very nice. I wanted to just say that you invited them already for the workshop with the webinar, which might be ending now when we record this. But then I also want to say that I'd like to invite everyone to be part of the Philippines Top 30 Leaders on LinkedIn. We have a page there where we're going to be posting articles and sharing different things to help you level up your leadership. So we hope that everyone can just be a part of that.
Yeah, I want to add something pala, no? I've actually attended Francis's level of leadership. I won't say when, but as Francis said, no, he updates it every time, no? So I really got a lot from that session. I think it was a 2-day session that
Thank
time
you.
with Shangri-La Francis, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken. So I
thank
really encourage everyone listening to this podcast and watching on the recording on YouTube sometime in a few weeks from now to do take time to invest your time in Francis's
Yes,
level of leadership. You will not regret it. You will get a good ROI if you're
thank
a fan of
you.
computations of ROI. um, and we can't share details yet, but Francis, myself, and Anda are partnering on a very interesting and important conference sometime
Yes,
October. We will share more details as the weeks go by, but just to excite you guys that it's gonna be a conference of very prestigious and impactful speakers, leadership speakers at that.
yes, yes. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for guesting me in your podcast. And I'd like to close also by encouraging you to take part in this, and also with LinkedIn Top 30. Uh, Life is not fair. I get the bulk of invitations from clients across industries. That is simply because when HR people invite the speakers, they want to make sure that the speaker is bankable because their career is on the line. If they get somebody who cannot deliver what they want, it's going to be a mark against them as far as their career with their bosses are concerned. I understand that, but that's unfair. There's just a lot of practitioners who are many, many times more gifted and talented who just need a break. At my age right now, there's no sense for competition to happen anymore. I'm in a stage wherein I'd like to spot practitioners who really have the stuff that can help people, and in whatever ways I can to be able to, I wouldn't say mentor, but to be able to help and launch them into a bigger, to have a bigger reach so that more people can be helped. And through this, Anda and Ian and I, we're also thinking of certain things that we can do so that these people can also get an opportunity for you guys to meet them. And there's just so much that we can learn from them as well. So, yan naman ang advantage pag senior ka na eh. You're not thinking about competition anymore. You're thinking of passing it over to the next generation.
No, excited for what's to come, Francis, and thank you so much for your generosity as always.
Yeah,
You're
thank you,
welcome.
Francis.
You're welcome.
So,
Thank you.
so thank you for guesting on the show, Francis, and we look forward to more interactions with you outside of this podcast. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoy and find value in this episode, share this with a friend, leave us a rate or review on Apple Podcasts.
And make sure to subscribe to get notified of our next episode. Talk to you next time.
Remember to always stay resilient.